Hey guys, I'm here today to talk about all the books I read this past week. I have Winnie sitting here on my lap. I didn't intend for her to be here. I pushed her off a couple times actually, but she came back each time, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give up. She's the ruler of the roost, and so yeah, we have to listen to her. And I'm sure none of you mind looking at her. She kind of blends in with my shirt, but hopefully you can see her. At least you can see her eyes, kind of. But yeah, anyway, I had a much better week than I had last week. I started off this week with a bunch of rereads because last week several of the books I read were just blah, and so I wanted something I was guaranteed to love, and so yeah, I thought rereads would do the trick. But outside of that, yeah, my week was again much better than last week. I think I was just in like a, I don't know, like kind of like not a depression, but just like a, I think all of us are going through this, where like I'm going in swings. And so this week I was like a much better, I was like chipper, not chipper exactly, but yeah, like I was just keeping busy, like mentally with like working and reading books, and then I was doing lots of yoga and walking Tucker, and doing lots of cooking and cleaning, and so yeah, just keeping busy is what I needed, because I think I'm on like week 6 now, week 7, I don't even know, of being at home, and so I'm all for staying at home and being a homebody. I'm trying to lift Winnie up so you can see her, but yeah, after a while, you want that get out for a bit, and so yeah, I'm thinking like next weekend we might just go for like a long drive and just get out of the city and see something different besides these like 4 walls we're in. but yeah, onto the books. So like I said, I started off with rereads, and so this one is Anna Wendy Poplar's. This is book 4 in the Ellen Montgomery's Anne of Green Gables series. And so this one is when Anne is out of college, and so she's starting off working in Summerside. And so this is all about, and this is all told through letters, and she's mainly writing home to Gilbert. And so what I didn't like about this book is how you don't see Gilbert, because she's writing to him. But it's a different way of telling the story. But I think maybe like Montgomery did this because from the previous book, they're engaged to get married, and so I'm sure we're going to see him later on in the series. And so she just focuses on Anne's struggles with this new job and this new setting, and so mainly it's following Anne, like solving people's problems, or and so that got a bit annoying because like. She's like Miss Fix It. She can do everything and like do no wrong. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And I think like for my rereads of this series, I think the last time I tried reading this series, like I feel like book 5, and I think there's 8 books in this series. But yeah, I never liked any of them as much as the first one, and so I gave up after book 5. But I'm doing this reread, just reading the whole series, a couple of booktubers are prompting me to, and so this will finally allow me to push through and finish the series. And the next book I read is A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. This is book 7 in the Wheel of Time series, and this one I can't really talk much about because I don't know how many people have read this series, and like it wouldn't make any sense to you. But it's mainly following three men who are like kind of like shoved out of their town, their small village, and they're onto adventures and trying to stop this bad power, the bad Dark Lord figure. And so in this one, it mainly focuses on one of the 3 men that I really like, Matt, who is like very much the jokester of the group. He's into gambling and drinking, and so he's just fun to read about because he's always getting up to no good, and but also he is a good character, a good guy in the end, and so yeah, he's fun to read about. And then the last book I reread is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, and this is the first book in the Ender saga. The first time and only time I've read this was when I was assigned to it when I was a sophomore in high school. And when I got this book, it's the same cover I had when I was in high school. And I had never really read any sci-fi books. And so I saw this and I was like, oh, it's going to be a space book. I have no interest in it. But I think it was like the second week of like you get like daily or weekly reading assignments. By the second week, I was all into it. And so I like zoomed ahead and finished the whole book. And there was like weeks and weeks left of reading this book in class. And so I remember like getting assigned these quizzes to make sure you read the book. And it was all like things that I wouldn't remember. It was like, what shirt was this guy wearing, or what was the exact phrasing of who this person said, and I couldn't remember, but I had read the book. But yeah, so it was to my detriment that I wanted to find out what was happening. But upon rereading, I didn't remember that Ender, when he starts off, he gets sent to this battle school. They're fighting the Buggers, which is a funny name. But he's 6 years old when he gets pulled away from his family. I didn't remember that. I was like, wow, he starts really young. But it follows him, who he kind of takes the abilities of his older siblings. You have Peter, who is a very I don't know, like mean boy. He like tests. He not tests things out, but he for fun, and he kills squirrels and like does experiments on them. And then you have his sister, what's her name, Valentine, who is like the opposite of him, where she can't see herself doing any harm to people, but she is very much she's able to like persuade people through her writing. And so Ender is like taking the abilities of both of them, and so he's chosen to be like one of the leaders of the school. And so you follow him like through these battles. And yeah, it's a very engaging read. And there's like sci-fi in there. I mean, not sci-fi. There's politics in there as well. That gets played a more and more significant role as the book goes on. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I might continue on with the series because I've only read the first one in this series. I then read Treacherous Trails. This is the second book in the Gold Country Cowboy series by Dana Mentick. And this is a love-inspired suspense. And this is I don't know, like my fifth or sixth book in this love-inspired suspense. Not series, but printing, I don't know what you call it. And I am really liking it. It's like from like the very first chapter, you usually get thrown in to the adventure. And so this one is following Ella. And she is suspected of murder, and she goes to jail, and she's out on bail, and so she needs to identify the killer and have proof of the killer to be able to justify her good name. And because her main motivation is that her older sister, Beth, I think is her name, who is disabled. And so what I really liked about this story is, along with the high octane suspense ride, is that you really see the love that Ella has for her sister. She puts her dreams on hold and turns down this huge opportunity in order to take care of her sister. And so I really like that. And so it's also following Owen, who's dealing with his own problems, and he is like the love interest here, and he's helping her find the killer. So yeah, this was a really cool read. And it's also Gold Country. It's set in California, and I was actually living in the Gold Country when I was in California, so that was kind of cool. It's like the same setting. I could visualize like lots of areas. The town mentioned wasn't the town, like a real town, but yeah. I then switched over to reading Amish and April books, and this is the second book in the Amish Candy Shop Mystery series. And this is Lethal Licorice by Amanda Flower. And I really like this series. It's following, what is her name? Bailey, who she herself isn't Amish, but her grandparents are. And so she is helping them out working at the candy shop, because her previous job was a chocolatier in New York City. And so she kind of like drops that dream to work at the candy shop, and with all like no electricity and things like that. And so in this one, she's in a competition to like showcase her town of Harvest, Ohio, and so to represent her town. And so the main, not the villain, but the one who dies is like very isn't happy at all that Bailey is participating in this competition, because it's supposed to be only for Amish people and Amish shop owners, even though her grandparents are owners. And so she gets set off on, let's see, Wendy here. So she gets set on just finding out who the killer is, and because the lethal licorice part is her licorice is the poison that killed the person, so she wants to redeem her name. So yeah, I for sure want to continue on this series, because this is one of the Amish books I've read. This is like one of my favorite ones, because I like how it isn't too preachy, and it's following someone who isn't Amish, so you get that English and Amish lifestyle. I then read The Mum Who Got Her Life Back by Fiona Gibson, and this is following, let's see, what's her name? Nadia, who it's kind of like describes it in a way. Nadia, who she's finally on her own, like she's an empty nester, and so she's getting her life back, and so she meets a man named Jack, and they start hitting it off really well, and then there's a thing that gets thrown into the mix. Her son comes back, and what is his name? Alfie, and he is really annoying, to be honest. He is in college. He comes back out of college, and he's like struggling. He doesn't know what to do with his life, and so he wants to basically crash at his mother's house. But things have changed now, and so yeah, he was annoying. But yeah, I think he's supposed to be comedic. I don't know, but because he has very strict dietary needs now, and even though he wasn't eating this way before when he's in college, now he thinks he knows everything about everything, and so he's constantly correcting his mother about her choices and lifestyle. And so yeah, this is kind of just self-describing itself. I can't talk, but yeah, self-explanatory in a way. But yeah, this was okay. It wasn't like a big hit for me at all, but yeah, it was good to read. I then read Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center, and this is about Cassie, who she was a firefighter in Austin, Texas, and she gets pulled to Boston, Massachusetts, because she needs to take care of her mother, who is sick. And so she's going from she's a firefighter, so she's going from a very liberal firehouse in Austin, and now she's going to a very conservative, like all boys firehouse, and so it's a lot different. And so there's a lot of bullying involved in this book, and yeah, lots of bullying, and then so she's trying to show that she is as good as the men, and so she's constantly competing with them in different tasks to show that she's not just on par with them, but can be even better. But using her brain and her brawn to show that, and so yeah, I really like that. And so I also really liked seeing the relationship she had with her mother, and there's also a relationship with a fellow rookie of sorts, and so yeah, that was fun to read about as well. And this is the first book I read by Catherine Center, but yeah, I really like the writing and the story, and so I'm gonna definitely read something else by her. I then went back to reading Amish books, and this is Between You and Me by Susan Wiggs, and this is following. Let's see what her name is. Okay, yeah, Caleb and Reese. So Caleb, he is Amish, and but as a teenager, he really started questioning being Amish, following that lifestyle, and so he's really contemplating and decides really to break away from his faith, but he gets pulled back in due to his brother, and so he has to raise his niece and nephew. And then on the other side, you have Reese, who she is really been instructed all her life by her very successful parents into becoming a neonatal, not neonatal, but like a baby surgeon, and so to like help be a part of their field of study. And so she is very much like cast into that role, and so she's like killing herself to death, working herself to death in pursuing this, even though she's really questioning, is that really what she wants to do? Does she really pursue that specific part of the field of being a doctor? And so then them two come together through her helping the nephew that Caleb is raising. Something happens to him, and so she helps him, even though not the remedy, but the remedy they have for his affliction is against the Amish belief system, and so because it's using these English methods of healing, and so there's contention there between Caleb and his very conservative father. And so yeah, anyway, I'm kind of like tangling up the story here. Like, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, this was a really good book. I liked how it was kind of like in-depth story that I like Susan Wiggs, I think, had the perfect length of story. So you got to know the characters really well and see them slowly form a relationship, and you really understand what their motivations are. So yeah, I really like this one. I then read another book I read for the Amish in April. This is Two Steps Forward. This is the third book in the Deacon's Family series by Suzanne Woods Fisher. And Becker, I think you can hear him, so I wanted to, so you can hear me over him. Okay, so yeah, this is following Jimmy, who he has been working in Colorado, and so he comes back to his like family farm, and when he comes back, he finds out that his mother is being very much irritated by Sylvie because the creek is the dividing line between her house, his mother's house, and Sylvie's house. But the creek is slowly going and making the mother's house smaller and smaller, her yard smaller and smaller. And so she wants, like this house, the house that Sylvie's in, used to be my grandfather's house. So it's really my house. And so I need you to get it back. And so Jimmy ends up working with Sylvie to help her fix up the farm and make it more presentable because like everything's gone all over the place. Like there's chickens running around and everything's like dilapidated because she is a widow. Her husband died, and so she's taking it all on herself. And she has this really cute boy that she's raising. And so there's a relationship there that forms. And yeah, this was a really cute story. And this is like the final book in the trilogy. And I read all three of them, so this is actually a series that I have read the full story of. And so yeah, if you haven't read any Amish books and you want to, then I really like a lot of Suzanne Woods Fisher's books. And then the last book I read is Sons of a Blackbird Mountain by Joanne Bischoff. And this is the first book in the Blackbird Mountain series. And this is following Avon. And she is set to work as a housekeeper thinking, oh, it's like really white. Let's see if I can turn it down a bit. She is set to work at a house where she thinks it's going to be young boys, but it turns out to be men, grown men. And so she is working with Thor and Haken, I think is his name. Haken, and Thor actually is deaf, and so I was like, oh, we'll see how they represent deaf people. And this one it was actually better than other representations that I've read because Thor, like what I always find annoying is how a lot of times when there's deaf characters, how they're all just assume they can lip read everything, and I'm just like, no, that's not how it works. And so in this one, he actually most of the time he has to speak through signing or writing it down, or speaking using his brother as an interpreter to talk to Avon. And so yeah, I really like that because that's actually like more of like what it is in real life. But and so it follows Avon, who's the housekeeper, and her relationship between the two brothers. They both have an interest in her, and she has an interest in both of them. But she's more and more interested in Thor through watching him. But Thor has a huge problem with alcohol, and so that kind of throws a wrench in things, and so it's like a love triangle in a way. And so overall, I didn't really like this book as much as I wanted to. The writing, I don't know, it kept me removed a bit, and so I was never really like enthralled in the story or really care that much about the characters, even though I really liked the deaf representation there. So yeah, there was that one, and those are all the books I read outside of the comic books. I don't know if I mentioned it. I read a couple of comic books, but I didn't want to talk about them because I don't know if any of you would be interested in them. I already go I feel like kind of like long-winded on a lot of these other books that so yeah, like I don't know if you want to add those in the mix as well, but yeah, I wanted something to like break up all this like text reading. So yeah, reading that have like pictures and all that is nice because I haven't been watching that many movies or like TV shows. I've been trying to, but yeah, I don't know, nothing has like really grabbed my interest. And like especially like TV shows, I have a really hard time picking a TV show and like finishing it because it just goes on and on. I'm like, yeah, I like something. If I'm gonna watch something like a movie, I think it's better for me just because like I can watch the whole story there without having to continue like dragging on a story, if that makes sense. But yeah, let me know how everyone how are all y'all doing? All of us stuck in our homes, like how are y'all handling it? And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.